Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Future Baseball GM's YouTube channel. Today, like to welcome Mario Signorello. He is the CEO at the Caribbean Baseball Organization. Mario, welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we're happy to have you. And just to get started, can you kind of give our listeners just a brief rundown of, just introduce yourself and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Got it. Name's Mario Signorello. I am the CEO of the Caribbean Baseball Organization. I've been full-time operations since February 11th of last year in doing that. Previous to that, I worked for 15 seasons for the Miami Marlins baseball team of Major League Baseball. And going further back to that, I've been a college baseball promoter for next year, God willing, with the virus. So it'll be year number 25 for me to be doing that. And everything that I've kind of done has kind of evolved into where I am now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And for our listeners and personally myself, like what exactly is the Caribbean Baseball Organization, and kind of if you could explain sort of like how that you guys operate on a day-to-day basis.
Sure, it's a good question. We have three properties, and then there's a few other events that we have started to get into as with the coronavirus situation. We've had to reinvent ourselves in a few different ways. But the three properties that we own are actual events. One of them that will be in its 25th year next year is called the Palm Beach Challenge. This is a college and international baseball invitational made for spring break events. So if teams up from the Northeast and Midwest have their spring break, it's not realistic to schedule 8 to 10 home games because you have no idea what the weather situation will be like. So you come to Florida the same way as spring training is. The difference is all the games for our teams count. And that's the misnomer, just because they're playing the same time as major league teams. As I explained, the University of Miami is in South Florida. So when people ask, does yours game count? I said, well, if Miami's playing one of my teams, would the game count? Well, yes, it would. Well, then when they're not playing Miami, those games count also. As I said, that's year 25. This would have been year 8 for the Grand Bahama Sports Festival held in Freeport, Grand Bahama, but COVID has put a pause on that. We were scheduled to go 2 weeks ago, but in my island, as I call it, because I spent about a month out of the year there, they only had 7 cases with 50,000 people and no tests in 6 weeks before they opened the borders on July 1st. And by the 3rd week of July, they had over 200 cases of COVID as people from Florida were coming in and people were returning and not quarantining. So that's been postponed. And then the big one, the one that kind of took me away from Major League Baseball, where I took my early retirement, was the World Comes to Palm Beaches. This is a invitational for one team per country, per age group, with 15 and 18-year-olds as the feature age group. And we started this in 2017, and by 2018, it had grown so big that I needed to move forward with it or stop doing it because my commitments to the Marlins to fulfill all my commitments there. Last year, we started with 15 teams and 35. Last year, we had 45 teams. There were 25 overall countries represented from 5 different continents. We would have been 6 continents, but Nigeria had their visas rejected. And that's everybody from U.S., Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Mexico, to Russia, Australia, Guatemala participated with us last year. Peru's been a constant with us before. Cayman Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, China, Lithuania. They've all participated with us in the 3 years we've been having that. We also have our own YouTube channel in which we've rebranded ourselves into being international. We do an international game of the week every week. Now we do interviews. And we had a company called Spring Media out of Sweden that contacted us about we could get up to 6 different leagues. We're programming. Currently, we have 2 that have agreed, and they would look to buy our product and put it on there and put it on for a gambling element. We also have another program called Building Baseball Around the World, where we are where we work with different organizations in different countries that are helping development. Our current project is putting up a fence in Bimini, Bahamas, in clay. They haven't had clay in 12 years, and the fence blew down 4 years ago, so I can't play any baseball on the island right now. And then we're about 6-8 weeks, we're going to announce an initiative that's going to change the world through baseball. And I wish I could tell you more, but I really can't.
No, it's okay, and I appreciate that. It's a lot of information for our listeners to take in. And I think it's really interesting because I did not know too much about the Caribbean Baseball Organization until I was until you introduced yourself to me, and we connected with each other. And I think it's really interesting just how there's so many places where baseball is being played that we don't realize.
Right, and that's part of what we've done. If people want to check our YouTube channel, CBO-TV, and I think it's Game of the Week number 8 was actually 13 different games where we took little parts of 13 different countries on all 7 continents. And you heard me correct, all 7 continents, including, we've even got some video from Antarctica of ball being played. But it takes you to Colombia, it takes you to Cuba, it brings you, there's a new league in Laos in Southeast Asia that nobody knew of. The Japanese helped them put in a $250,000 all-turf stadium, and now there's a league in Laos. So that's part of what we're trying to do, is introduce the different parts of the world. My LinkedIn posts that I've done on Europe, because we're closely aligned in several of our events, had nearly 100,000 views of the, I think, 18 different countries that we profiled.
Awesome. Yeah. So is there, for me to kind of get more of understanding and our listeners, is your guys' season something like you guys have games every day, or is it, how does that kind of work with this?
Well, we are promoters, so it all depends on which aspect that you're looking at it. For the events that we own, they're spaced about 3 months apart. Okay. So we've got room for one more. But there's the other things that we do. The game of the week, we're featuring one every Sunday now. We've spoken to a couple different leagues about attaining theirs and putting on our format and working with this other company. But baseball has been, as you know, pretty much shut down around the world. There are some leagues that have gone on. Till Major League Baseball hit, my fix is on ESPN on cable. I watch ESPN, and I've got my KBO Game of the Week. Over on my tablet now, I've got from Taiwan the Twitter feed of by 11 Sports, who were also the ones who had broadcast our World Comes to Palm Beaches. They do Taiwan baseball, and then in Nicaragua they started their championships yesterday, so I've got that to watch before my 5 o'clock Marlins doubleheader. So we're starting to do is attain some of these leagues, and not the ones that we spoke of, but other leagues that are going on, and we're working on trying to do some additional programming with them. But my job keeps evolving, and it keeps going in different ways. I think I look at like what I do on a daily basis, and I look sometimes and say, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, I think I could definitely attest to that. And for me, just beginning my career, I kind of have an understanding now of like, what business of baseball is. And I think for, obviously I'm in player development, you're running an organization. So it's 2 different aspects. But if we take a step backwards, so if I've seen that and you mentioned you worked at the Marlins for 15 years. Can you kind of take us through that process of what it was, your experience working for them, and kind of why you left there to go to pursue this other opportunity with the CBO?
Sure. Well, first of all, the Marlins almost kind of came to me. I was running my college baseball event, and I had the facility that we used to use was a 6,500 seat Homestead Sports Complex that had 6 fields with a main stadium of 6,500 seats. It was built in 1992 for the Cleveland Indians to start playing in '93. However, 4 months after it was dedicated, Hurricane Andrew came through South Florida, and until Katrina came to New Orleans, it was the largest natural disaster to ever hit the United States. And the Indians said they were going to wait till 94. By the time 94 went, Homestead still wasn't up to par, and Major League Baseball started moving. So in 96, with what the hell, let's give them a chance, the city turned the facility over to me for a month in order to run my college baseball event beginning in 1997. And it was an unfair advantage for me because I'm taking a 4-year-old major league facility never used and saying, come here for college baseball. In year 2 of the event, we had 40 teams that first year. And in year 2, I got a call from Mike Roberts, the dad of Brian Roberts, who was at North Carolina. He said they're supposed to host USC in a 3-game series. They want to know if they can move it to our place. And I looked it up, and USC was #1 in the country, had 4 future first-round picks and Major League ball players, and Jason Lane and Eric Munson and Morgan Ensberg, who made the All-Star team. So, of course, I said yes. And I think the second game that was played, there were 7 future Major Leaguers there and over 60 scouts. Then I also got a call from Matt Holliday, Matt Holliday's dad, who was the head coach at Oklahoma State. They'd gone to the World Series. They were going to go again in '98. Says, you got that tournament on TV? And I said, yes. He goes, well, I got an open weekend. So Oklahoma State then joined us, and they had Matt Smith that year. Then University of Miami coach Jim Morris agreed to start coming down and playing, and Pat Burrell was on that team, and Jason Michaels and Aubrey Huff. So as you can imagine, then along with we had this team from Northeastern had this first baseman, and the first game that we scheduled, there were 72 scouts at the game. It was the first time Carlos Pena had hit outside in 4 months, and everybody was there to watch. So we were immediately on the map. But being college baseball, I know that it's not mainstream unless you're at a place like LSU, or my former coach, Paul Maneri, is now the head coach. You're not going to attract, particularly in South Florida. So I thought, as a parent, what would get kids to games? So I said that if we offered a free clinic from a Division I school, the kids in uniform get in free. They can run the bases after the game. After the game, we would get a lot of participation. Because as a parent, what do you want to do? You want your kids to you want to spend the least amount of money as possible. You want your kids to be able to do something and have fun, and if you can be loud and drink beer. So we made beer $3 all game long. We had 450 kids at the game and 2,000 people from Purdue and Pittsburgh. And the Marlins, who were present there, I got a call from the vice president and said, how'd you do it? And said, when you like to know, jokingly, and because I'd known him, and David Sampson had instructed him to have a conversation with me, and bless the organization. We sat, we listened, and we negotiated, and a few months later, they actually, it was after they won the World Series, and I said to Sean Flynn, the vice president at the time, if you win the World Series every year, you don't need me. But if you don't, you do. He goes, no, we do. And so we negotiated a position, and there at the age of 41, I became a full-time employee of a Major League Baseball team for the first time. I was working for any particular team, and with a new program called Youth Baseball and Softball Partnership Program, which was a little different for me. I was always in sales, and I thought like a parent, so that was good. But most of the people, including the now president, Michael Hill, knew me from the baseball side of things, because I was the guy. We had over, for a 6-year period from 98 to 04, 11% of every player that got drafted from college baseball to Major League Baseball had played in Homestead.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. I think it's really cool, just your involvement on the youth side, because sometimes that, I guess, it gets overlooked, and maybe there's not enough effort that's put there.
Yeah, to answer your question maybe a little better, my job was to get the kids in South Florida to grow up as Marlin fans.
Oh, okay.
And as you know, the Marlins were challenged, to say the least, by with attendance. Part of that is being a transient community. Less than 50% of the people in South Florida were born in another country, and then of that other 50%, more than half were born somewhere else. And I think there's 3 things in life you can't change: your birth date, your social security number, and your favorite childhood baseball team. So David Sampson would say he knew Mario was doing his job when he saw when he saw the dad wearing the Met jersey and the kid wearing the Marlins jersey. So that was
Yeah.
my job, was to come up with different ideas and innovations to get kids to be interested in Marlins.
Yeah. Have you seen, so from your time doing that, like, did you see a growth in that by the time you left the Marlins?
Oh yeah, well, it really didn't. They didn't have that much of a program that existed, and yeah, we set records. I mean, I had up to 9,000 people at a game, all youth baseball related to kids. So we formed partnerships with different youth leagues, and it was funny watching last night. Nick Castellanos go deep for Cincinnati for the 6th time. When we had a program when we take the teams if you won state high school, we brought you out there and recognized you before the game and brought you to batting practice. And when Nick was a senior, we had taken him, we brought his team out there and watched batting practice, and they had the award. 4 years later, his high school won again, so they came to a game. They happened to come to a game where he was playing for Detroit. So the coach said to me, 4 years ago, Nick was on this side playing for us, and now he's on the other side, and we're sitting here watching him play. So moments like that are pretty neat. We never had high school games before. We started hosting them. We started partnerships with different youth leagues. As I said, we had up to 9,000 people in a game. And we started a program called BP Buddies, where kids got to sit in the dugout before the game and watch the Marlins take batting practice and have them and meet and talk with them and get some autographs and pictures, which was, as a kid, you don't lose that memory.
Yeah, no, so one of my first baseball internships was with the Greensboro Grasshoppers in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I guess I never understood that side of the game, the business side, until actually being, being involved. And yeah, when you do see, like, I was a sales intern, and just to see how happy people were because you provided with that specific part of entertainment, it really went a long way. And I think Greensboro was one of the highest in attendance in the South Atlantic League.
Yeah, did you see Jack McKeon around there?
I wasn't too involved with the players.
Okay.
So I was more of just more like the front office side. So usually our VP of baseball ops, and I think at that time it was the Marlins, like the Marlins side stayed away from like the minor league side, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, Jack lived in North Carolina, and he was a special assistant. He was the architect of the 2003 World Series title, and just a wonderful. Whenever he would come and visit, people would line up, and he was very gracious and always speaking to people and telling some pretty good stories.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think something that, it's kind of, I guess, more of an easy question, but when did you kind of know that you wanted to work in baseball? Like, you worked with the Marlins for a while and getting that job at age 41, but to kind of backtrack a little bit, like what kind of made you want to work in baseball, whether it be playing or?
I love the game, and I think that always, even when I was playing, and I was a righty who right-handed pitcher, threw in the low 80s. So my baseball career wasn't going to go that far, and actually it was a discussion that my dad had after Paul Maneri had a discussion with me about my baseball career, and then I went home that night, and I wasn't happy with the original discussion, and my dad said, "Exactly when did you think the end of your career would come?" And after listening to him, I kind of said, "Well, playing wise, I guess today." He goes, "Playing wise, that's the key question there. What else do you want to do?" He goes, "There's a lot of things to do in baseball." And that's when my mind started going and getting involved in doing things. And when I was doing a softball tournament in '95, when I walked onto the homestead, right, that was part of the complex, and I walked in and something just hit me. I was like, this place is beautiful. I need to do something with this. And watching one of my interns from Barry University play in a game against Michigan State, they announced that the game was only going to be 7 innings because Michigan State, the Spartans, had to go to play in FAU that night in Boca Raton. The next day they were playing in a high school field in Fort Lauderdale, and the light went on. Big Ten schools doing 3 cities in 2 days. When I played at St. Thomas, it seems like a 2-3 week period, we played a northern school every day. And let me find those teams and put them in that facility, and I could look smart. And that's that's where I started, and everything has evolved from there. It's based on it's based on seeing opportunities and working with them, and that's kind of how the World Comes to Palm Beaches came about. I had a full-time job with the Marlins, was happy with it. Been there, had great coworkers, and then I got a call from the director of the Palm Beach County Sports Commission, George Lindley. He said, "My check's ready. Uh, do I want to come pick it up?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Have I seen the new ballpark of the Palm Beaches where the Nationals and Astros train?" It was opened in February of 2017, and this was approximately June of 2017. So I go, "No, I haven't." He goes, "Well, why don't you come pick it up there? I'll arrange for I'll get a hold of the general manager and we'll give you a tour." And he said that the state and the county had put in a total $144 million to build a facility, and 80% of the events outside spring training were Florida people, and the state didn't put money in for Florida people to be able to play there. So would I be interested in doing my international tournament? And when I showed up there, as I said, the motivation was picking up my check. But I think that when I walked in there, that's the way a priest feels when they go to the Vatican for the first time. I was like, I have to do something here. And as I started this process, I started seeing that I really couldn't properly serve two masters. And Derek Jeter had come in and brought in a new group. And I like Derek a lot. I was the first one in the organization to sit down and go one-on-one with him. And the 3-1 Marlins, I predict really good things for the future, because Derek's very focused on what needs to be done. Didn't really need to pay attention to what was done before, because that's not how things are going to be done in the future. And he's been very successful on the field, which was going through a lot of slumps and other things. So if you get good people and you have a good program, and after playing the game for so many years, I think you're going to see a lot different from the Marlins. So that was kind of bittersweet to walk away from there. But I can still get paid from Major League Baseball and work on my new project. So that's kind of the attitude that I took.
No, that's awesome, and I think getting backtrack a little bit for my career, like I graduated college last year, and then I played baseball throughout high school, and then that's when it stopped, and it almost happened. It almost stopped too soon for me, and I didn't know when that clock was going to stop, and I kind of regret a little bit that I stopped playing in high school. And I didn't go on and play in college, because and then also when I got to college, I didn't know that working in baseball was a thing, or exactly how to work in baseball. So I think now with seeing that throughout college and the experiences now and having the experiences, it has opened my mind to a lot of different opportunities. And I think because everyone says that they want to work in baseball, but it's more about their why. And for me and for yourself, we can both say we're passionate, but we have a why of why we want to do it and the reasons behind that. So I think, in the beginning of your career, did you have any challenges that you had faced prior to getting in to working with the Marlins?
Well, yeah, I kept I don't call it a mistake, but when I got out of college, I had started selling restaurant and janitorial supplies, and it morphed into me calling myself a toilet paper salesman after I went to convention in Las Vegas, and said that's what I did, and everybody needs it. And I went to the Cayman Islands and took a lucrative position, the only country that devaluates the U.S. dollar, no taxes. And then 3 years later, I moved back here after I'd saved some money and paid off my student loans, and basically told the working world I'm now ready. And when you're 5 years older and you had taken a job not in the industry, and now you're trying to get a job paying 60% less of what you used to make, and you're competing against kids 5 years earlier who had built up the resume while I was selling toilet paper, made it I wasn't able to get in. I was locked out, and understandably so. And it wasn't until I actually got into the Marlins where my mind opened up, and I saw all the different things to be done and all the different possibilities to be done. And if they hadn't come to me, I don't know if I would have, or initiated that thought process. I don't know if I would have been able I don't know if I would have been able to get in. But once I got in, I saw so many different things involved in baseball, and just, you take that same analogy into what we're doing now. I think you would ask, what's my day like? What's my day like a little bit? And I look at all the different things and opportunities and things that come to me, and come to me. Just last night, I was asked about doing an event in Utah, to where I had to kindly explain to people that when we go in and we do an event, first of all, we're subsidized by local government, by government or sponsors that we know that we go in. It's a locale that's it's a prestigious locale. I call the 15 ballpark the nicest facility in the world. 13 fields, and there's a lot of thought put into it. Our spring training site that we use was the former home of the Montreal Expos. It's 4 fields in a wheel configuration. It's a perfect setting for what we've done, and it's professionally maintained by Palm Beach County Parks and Rec Department. I was very proud to host the event, and our facility in the Bahamas, Emera Park, has been transformed into the 3-field complex into quite potentially one of the nicest fields in the Caribbean. So those things, and then we want to make sure that our teams are attracted to that locale. Bahamas event we call sportcation, sporting event, vacation, cultural mix number one. So how would we spin that into Utah, and what financial incentives would have to be in place? And I think that they understood that doesn't fit our motif, our motif of what we're doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, do you, with your position with the CBO, do you travel a lot, or is it, or
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah, I spent about 100 days out of a year on the road. About a month is spent in the Bahamas with Freeport. But over the last 3 years since I started this, I went to the Pan American Championships in Buenos Aires, Argentina, 2 years ago. With the qualifier went to the Pan Am Games. So I watched Argentina win there, but I was able to recruit Bolivia out of there in order to come and participate with us. One of the funny stories when I was there is I ran it before the game. I go out and they go, come meet the Brazil. Brazil was playing Argentina and pool play. And they go, come on out, meet the Brazilian coach. So I did. And I go, hi, Mario Signorello. And he goes, and the Brazilian coach goes, I know you. He turned around and I was like, we're closer to the South Pole than I am Miami. How do you know me? He goes, I used to play for the Marlins. I go, that's right. We had a Brazilian pitcher, Rienzo. Hey, how you doing? I go, yeah, I used to bring the kids out. And he goes, yeah, you always used to try and get us to sign autographs. But I struck up now a stronger friendship with him and Adrian De Souza, who's also worked professionally for the Rays. Then last year I went to the Bahamas 12 and under championships. And 12 and under championships in Eleuthera, which was not one of their main islands. So it was good for me to be there and be seen in a different setting. I also took a road trip last year to Daytona and scouting out some other ex-minor league facilities for a potential professional baseball winter league that's going to start in. Earlier this year, I was in Lithuania for the European conference meetings of all the different teams that were going to compete. 34 different country presidents were there meeting, so I was invited to the conference and able to sit in and meet with them. And then last year, August at this time, I was in Lima, Peru for the Pan American Games. So I do get out, and it is part of what I do, get out and travel a bunch to be able to. But between being in hotels for my events, it was about 100 days out of a normal year I'll spend on the road.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think in baseball, as you know, relationship building is huge, and you never know who you're going to run into, whether you're at an airport, whether you're at a restaurant, whether you're at a business meeting. And I think that's something I learned and didn't really know how tight knit the baseball industry is. And that being said, I think that brings up a great point. Something in a prior conversation that you and I had, you mentioned that you went to school with Avila, who was the general manager for the Detroit Tigers. And can you kind of, I guess, explain to our listeners more about, that relationship that you built with Al and kind of what you have learned from him to, what you apply, kind of in your own day-to-day work today?
Right. went to school with Al, and it was a pretty good coaching staff at St. Thomas University, which was a Division II school back then. Paul Maneri is now the coach at LSU.
Yeah, yeah.
Dave Schrey went on to become the coach at Notre Dame, and Al Avila is the president of the Detroit Tigers. I know when Detroit came to town, and I was able to see Al a couple over the year because with his schedule, with what he does, and he's not in South Florida as much. And I knew Al's dad. Who was the president, one of the vice presidents of the Dodgers for years. But he, one of the things I thought was interesting was when the Tigers, I can't remember, about 5-6 years ago, let off the season. I sat down with him, and he asked probably more questions about my job and what I was doing on the business side of things than the baseball side of it. And I thought that was pretty interesting because the Marlins are broken into two. There's a business end, and then there's a baseball end of it, and those were separate positions. But Al was genuinely interested in the things that I did. I saw that he was also on the business side of it, and he told me something that was very interesting that I've taken forward with me today. That when the big three automakers were struggling, rather than make it see what you can get, they gave them all benefits. He said, everything that you had last year, you're going to have this year. We know you're going through tough times. Times are going to get better, and when they do, we're here for you now. And when they do, remember us. And that's what they did. And they responded, and when things got better, then the revenues came back, and like you never missed anything. So especially now in times of like this, I'm speaking with different people, I'm keeping that in mind with it. We're doing some fundraising now with this Bimini ballpark, and we don't need to raise a tremendous amount, but you do have to ask people, and less than half the people that would have normally been eligible are eligible now. And the same thing with some sponsorships with some of the Bahamas event and some of the other things that were going on is we're going to carry everybody forward until things change a little bit. We've been fortunate ourselves to be able to stay afloat, and we're in a little bit better position than others, but I've taken that movement forward. Michael Hill, I probably got a closer with, he's the president of the Miami Marlins, and I first met Mike in 1998 when he was one of the people that was scouting Carlos Pena and Pat Burrell and everybody else that we had. And when Mike came to the Marlins, and when I came to the Marlins, it was maintain that relationship. And Mike had given me the opportunity a couple times a year to go in and ask questions with him. And Mike's a Harvard grad, so. And I know enough to be dangerous, and I've seen a lot of baseball. Over 70 players from my college event have gone on to Major League Baseball. I've had nearly 3,000 college games, several thousand Miami Marlins games. So I've seen a lot of baseball, but unless you study it every day, unless you look at things and the finer points, and one of my favorite parts of my job at the Marlins is youth league, the presidents of youth leagues talking to me about baseball. But when I go sit down with Mike, I realize how much I really don't know, and the finer points of things. About why was Chris Volstad getting hit lately? Well, if you look at his head, and he has a 82-degree angle instead of a 90-degree angle, the ball's going to get up, and it was almost like he was talking in different parts, things that were familiar with him. So I learned the nuances of the game and how well players are scouted and what people look for from Marlon's point of it, and from Al's point of view, and from Al's point of view, how he oversees the entire organization, and the parts are harder. One of the funny part is Al actually his son was released and signed by another team from the Tigers, and then he started doing really good. But he said that made for some interesting dinners with Mama when they were having to go through that. But it's part of doing your job.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I from my experience working with the Tigers, and I had the pleasure to meet Al Avila, We happened to be at the same restaurant one night in Lakeland just after work, and we ran into each other with my other coworkers, and was really appreciative of him taking his time to just introduce himself, getting to know him. And I think it's definitely, like I said, it goes back to like what we were saying before. Just there's gonna be, you build those relationships. You don't know who you're gonna run into at that right time. And I think the other part, takeaway is like there's things that you don't know that you just don't know, and those things that you don't know, people, are in the baseball industry help you out with those things just to make sure you can continue to learn as well, and that's their way of trying to help you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm learning every day.
Yeah,
I have 3 rounds of interns every year, and I'm learning from them.
yeah,
And when it comes time to think, I had some super interns this summer who totally redid our website and did a lot of the marketing for the project that I can't really speak about,
yeah.
uh,
No,
and it was put in place. What I can say is this new project is going to change the world through baseball. We've got a major platform. There's 10 different major leaguers. There's 3 major leaguers at the top that are involved with us. One's in the Hall of Fame, and the others are very recognizable. And there's some other people that we're also discussing to join the platform, but it's going to be pretty powerful.
awesome. Yeah. So to kind of just wrap up our call today, is there any advice that you can offer to individuals that are looking to work in the professional baseball industry? And I guess to follow off of that, is there any way that our listeners could reach out to you about potential opportunities in the future with the CBO?
Sure. Well, first, I'll put the CBO part at the end and appreciate it. But we had Andy Ellisberg come and speak. We do Zoom meetings twice a week. One I run, the other the interns run, and I try and have guest speakers on. And one of the guest speakers was Andy Ellisberg, the general manager and vice president of Miami Heat. And Andy had 5 different positions before he broke in as an intern. Then he did 2 internships, and the second internship, when computers were coming out in 1988, a lot of people were scared of them, especially the older group. So Andy took a liking to computer. So he started writing press releases because he liked to write, because he was in charge of the school, writing an article for the school paper while he was in college. So the PR director didn't really like to write, wasn't sure what the commercial was like, and or what the computer was like, and that's how he got in. When that person moved to Miami Heat, he immediately got a job there, and then in 1998, the NBA disqualified a bid for several players the Miami Heat were able to get, and Andy figured a way afterwards to how it would have worked, and he is that got him, that helped him move in the door, but his intelligence and with the rest of the staff is the reason you see the Miami Heat compete year in and year out. The other story that I got is Brian, Marlins general manager Brian Chatton, started at the Marlins as a terrible salesperson. He will tell you that, but he wanted to get into Major League Baseball, and he wanted to get in with, and the only position in was in sales, so he took it. At the end of the year, the Marlins were sold. There was a 2-month hiatus where there was like no owner in, and when Larry Beinfest came in, and as the new president, and Brian had applied for a entry-level position in baseball operations, he was dating somebody from the Cincinnati Reds, and Larry called up the guy and said, "What do you know about this Chatton guy?" He goes, "Seems like a good kid." He goes, "Then he's hired. I got too many other positions to go after." And Brian, that was his toe in the door, or maybe the foot. The toe was the Marlins. The toe was sales. The foot was in cross there. Brian is very good at what he does, and he's now the general manager because he's very good at what he does. But he worked hard at every position that he had, whatever he was given, and the same thing with Andy. The same thing that Andy did. And as Andy will tell you, or Brian will tell you, you can't go into this job market wanting their jobs because there's only 30 of them. It's easier to make it as a player in basketball or in baseball as a player than it is to win it then. You need to go in because you love the game and you want to be able to work hard and see where your talent brings you. The best advice I could give is get dirty. Have a resume that shows you. Somebody gave me the advice once: if they ask for a volunteer, raise your hand before they finish the question. You need to get recognized. You need to look different. So have internships on there. Have volunteers on there. Have special events on there. Do whatever it takes to be around that organization. You never know who's looking, who's watching, and who's going to be good. If you are good, then talent may or may not get you there, because wherever you go, that opportunity may not come, and you might have to look to be able to move around. But if this is what you like to do, put your best foot forward, and talent will eventually get you to where you need to be. And make sure that you have patience with it. We have 4 interns. We have 3 now, and we're always looking for them. And we do external internships. Next semester, the ones I have now, one's in Spain because he wasn't allowed to stay here because
Yeah.
of COVID, and since he couldn't go in school. One's at LSU, and the other one's in Miami. So you can contact me at if you put my email up later on, but it's Finch, FINCHSYD 149 at gmail.com. If you want to look us up, our website is cbotournaments.com.
That's great. No, thank you so much for sharing that, Mario. Thank you again for coming on our YouTube channel today. And, we look forward to inviting you back soon.
Great. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.